This is not an easy one this week. It comes straight out of the mailbag, and it's about how to locate homeless people. Hi, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com and the creator of the Investigator's Ultimate Guide series, which is premium private investigator training from someone who's been there and done that. Every now and then, you'll be called upon to skip trace or find somebody who's homeless, who's living on the streets. And this is very challenging. Of course, a lot of times the first step for finding somebody is to hit your databases, type in their name, see what pops up. Maybe you'll get a current address from a source that other people don't have. Maybe you have some leads that you can follow up on, family members, that type of thing, and you start your normal skip tracing process. And I would encourage you, go ahead and try that. Do that with a homeless person that you've got to find. But there are some other things to keep in mind as well. One thing to think about is your normal databases where you're looking for like a last known address or an address history may not be the most helpful thing in the world to you. Now they will be to some extent. Keep in mind the places that this, say he has hung out or listed as an address before may have a lead for you to something else, or he may occasionally use that address again. A lot of street people have an address they use for mail even if they don't use it regularly. It's also the type of address they'll give to the police when they're arrested or this type of thing. So their mom's address might show up fairly regular. And if you were to ask somebody, a street person, for their address, if they're going to give you an address, a lot of times they'll give you their mom's address. And this is important. I talk about it in another video. There's a big difference between where do you live and where do you stay. If you say where do you live, they're going to give you their mom's address. They're going to give you an address in their mind that kind of think, well, if I had to get mail, I could probably get it there. But where do you stay is a whole different question. So the database is giving you some previous address information, may be a help to you. Look on law enforcement sources is some place to look. So we're talking about arrest records, court records, those types of things, criminal histories. Those are going to provide you with some addresses and some information, maybe some other people who are arrested at the same time that are going to provide you leads. Now, one thing that will come up a lot when dealing with addresses in police reports and arrest records, those types of things, you'll see where they're staying. Their address is just simply listed as streets of Los Angeles, streets of Chicago, streets of Milwaukee. Wherever they're staying, they'll list the streets of. Because let's face it, it's not necessarily in their advantage to give up actually where they're staying to the police when they're being arrested. So now you have this issue of these things, the address you need is not going to come up in the database. And this is why it gets a little bit hard for tracking down homeless people, is because you actually do have to get out of the office, hit the streets, and start looking. Now, different kinds of people list themselves as homeless. Some people they might be staying at the YMCA and maybe have stayed there for years, but consider themselves homeless because it's a room they're renting. Other people might be crashing on a friend's couch and may have done that for 6 months. Consider themselves homeless because they're staying on someone else's couch. They don't have a home for themselves. So when you think homeless, you don't necessarily have to immediately go to sleeping on a park bench or a bus bench somewhere, or maybe off in some wooded area underneath an expressway ramp, although a lot of times that is the case. So let's talk about actually how to find a homeless person. One thing when you're looking for leads, and I've talked about this recently in another video, obituaries. You're going to find, maybe not for the person you're looking for. Obviously, if they're dead, that's important to know so you can stop looking. But a family member, a brother, sister, father, grandparent has passed away and they're listed in the obits. The reason this is helpful to you is because it will list relatives also survived by people who are also listed in the obituary, can give you a lead to where this person might be. But here's the real key, and it's a lot like this for tracking down anybody, but it really is so important when you're trying to track down somebody that's homeless, is they still have habits and customs and things that they do and places they go regularly. These habits and routines can be the key to finding a person. So even though they may be homeless, they're going to have the places that they prefer to be. They're going to stay at the same YMCA quite regularly, or default back there in cold weather. Maybe the same homeless shelter. That's the place they tend to go. Maybe it's the same homeless camp under that expressway ramp. People have habits and routines. Homeless people are no different. Another source of information is talking to the local cops who actually work in that precinct or that area. They know where all the homeless camps are. They know where these men and women hang out. And while a police officer may not be able to give you a lead on your specific person, they can give you a lead on different places that you can try looking. Charities and other places might have a lead on where homeless people stay, if not your specific person. And they may not be comfortable with sharing information about your specific person, but they certainly know, okay, here's where some people stay, or we bring blankets over here in the winter time, or here's a shelter where people come and pick up clothes on Tuesdays. Learning that kind of thing can give you a lead on where to find homeless people. Of course, there comes a point in time where you actually have to go out and quote unquote verify an address, just like you would with other people sometimes. To find these folks, you may have to actually go out into the camp or down to the Y or wherever it is you're looking and try to see this person, to spot them. Maybe you're just trying to find them. You don't even have to convey that you're looking for them. Maybe you need to give them some papers. Maybe you have some information from their family has been looking for them and you're trying to locate them to give them a letter or a phone number or contact information. No matter what it is, in these cases, a lot of times you've got to go out and do it. Now, the reason this is hard, the reason this is tricky is because if you're familiar with the area and the people who live in it, you may already kind of know sources. And I'm kind of jaded in a way because the places that I know really well. And so I can be a little bit casual about finding people. There's one guy in particular who kind of busk. He plays a little electric guitar. He has a little amplifier, battery powered, that he will go and sit on different corners and play music and try to solicit donations that way. And the funny thing is, he buys the super cheapest batteries he can find from the same place all the time. And when I go out in this particular neighborhood, I'll see 6 AA, these cheapo batteries discarded in some bushes or behind a bench or something, and I'll know for sure that he was there. There's no doubt about it. He left a trail that he was there, and depending on the condition of the batteries, you can determine a little bit of how recently he was there. When you have that level of knowledge of the street that you're working, the place that you're working, then finding somebody is much easier, especially because you know the people there and you can ask and you can talk to them. If you don't know the people, you still may have to interview them, talk to them, and try to get information from them. But remember, this is not always the easiest thing in the world, and they've got their lives they're living. They're going to be very suspicious of you, and they're going to have things that they want. Maybe they're going to try to hustle you. Finally, let me circle back around to a paper trail. And don't forget, when you're looking for criminal histories and arrest records and things like that, that this person may be currently in touch with a probation officer or parole officer, and this person may even have an upcoming criminal case that they've got to show up for. Now, in my experience, not likely they're going to show up, but still it might be worth getting up and going down to the courthouse at 9 o'clock that morning and seeing if the person actually does. So there's a few ideas on how to track down or find homeless people. If you've got things that you know that have worked for you in the past, maybe drop them in the comments. We can all learn from each other. In the meantime, this is Larry Kaye with ShadowAnyone.com. Remember, do the right thing, even if it's the hard thing.